Like our middle ground, or some shit. Neutral territory. When the silence got too heavy for me, I knew it was time for my secret weapon. Something I never used. Ever. I'm sorry. We both blurted at the exact same time. I let out an exasperated sigh, and swung my leg over the bench to straddle it. She was looking down at her hands. And she had that fucking hood up. I wanted to yank it off. What the fuck are you apologizing for? I snapped. My sorry no longer held the massive amount of significance it was originally intended.
I just was completely out of line getting into your bed, like that. It was uncalled for, and I'm sorry.
She answered quietly, playing with her fingers nervously. I let out another deep sigh. This was going to be harder than I thought. I'm not upset, Bella, I said, softly, ridding my mood of any and all annoyance I had been feeling. Honestly, I was trying to apologize for being such a dick this morning. Then I chuckled darkly. You should feel privileged. It's something I rarely do. Though I paused, thinking of the best way to ask without upsetting her further. Though, an explanation would be rather nice, I said, as more of a question than a statement. She turned towards me then on the bench, and brought her knees up to her chest, hugging them like she does sometimes.
It's really embarrassing.
She grimaced, biting her lip. She even blushed a little. I wanted to laugh at her, but knew that would be counterproductive, so I waited patiently. With an exhale of a gusty breath, she began to recount the events of the night before. How she was worried about me, so she came early. The alarm clock that was going off. Her coming into my room fearing I was dead. When she got to the part where she saw me sleeping, her face got tense and hard. She told me I was dreaming, and she couldn't wake me up. I was a little embarrassed that my girl saw me like that, but could hardly regret it now. Then she told me about how she climbed onto my bed to wake me up. And that's how she discovered she could touch me. I didn't understand what she was talking about when she described my touch, but filed it away for later contemplation. She continued her explanation with how her actions were soothing me, so she laid down and got comfortable, humming me the lullaby my mom used to sing me. Bella was right. This was really fucking embarrassing. For me, especially when she told me I put my arm around her.
So,
she concluded,
I just fell asleep. I didn't mean to, honestly. I was just going to stay until he woke up. But I was just so tired.
She trailed off, looking at me pleadingly. And you did? I asked, and then shook my head. Fall asleep, I mean. With no dreams? She nodded at me, biting her lip. I turned to face the river then, soaking up all this new information. It didn't take a fucking rocket scientist to see it. Bella was my key to sleep, and in some way, I was hers. It was some pseudo-Freudian bullshit, sure. And I'm certain plenty of psychiatrists would be lining up to uncover all the reasons it worked. But I didn't really give a fuck. Why? To be honest, I had bigger things to worry about. Like how the fuck I was going to ask Bella if she could do it again. I turned back to straddling the bench again, rubbing my hands over my face, and terrified I was going to do this all wrong. Bella, I sighed, clasping my hand in front of me. I have to ask you something, but I don't want to freak you out, I told her cautiously. I figured it was best to give some sort of disclaimer. Caution, Edward Cullen is really good at fucking shit up. Continue at your own risk. She nodded at me hesitantly, still hugging her knees facing me. I was itching to take that goddamn hood off her head. Something about it just annoyed the shit out of me. I shook my head, trying to stay on track. How uncomfortable would you be if I asked you if you could do it again? I asked very slowly, maintaining eye contact with her the whole time. I held my breath, hoping for the best, but expecting the worst. She kept her face carefully blank, and didn't speak for a few moments. My fucking face was turning blue. Eventually, her stone mask transformed, and she bit her lip.
I wouldn't be opposed to trying,
she whispered. I let the gust of breath out and smiled at her, relieved she didn't go running from my suggestion. But I had to know, had to make sure that whatever it was that allowed me to touch Bella hadn't gone away. so I tentatively raised my hand out to her palm up, silently asking her to take it, if she could. She looked at my hand dubiously, still biting her lip. Reluctantly she unclasped one hand from around her knees, and brought it out towards mine. With a slightly shaky index finger, she poked at my hand. There really was a slight spark there. I knit my brows together looking at my hand, but didn't say anything about it, and I kept my hand extended, lingering in midair between us over the bench. Obviously Bella was satisfied with what she felt with her experimental book, because she inched her arm back towards me and slowly slipped her small, soft hand into mine, closing around it comfortably with a small smile flirting at her lips and a brief flash of excitement in her eyes. I smiled back at her and stood up from the bench, bringing her with me. We crossed a yard back to my house hand in hand. My girl was fine. She seemed completely calm. More random emotion breakdowns. Before I let her climb up the lattice, I stopped her, unclasping my hand from hers, and glaring daggers at that fucking hood. I lifted my hand cautiously, but confidently, and grabbed the back of it, bringing it down and freeing her long brown hair. She quirked a questioning eyebrow at me, but I just nodded in approval, and watched her climb up. I waited until she was safely on the balcony, before I made my own way up. Once we were in the warmth of my bedroom, I began getting a little nervous. It felt fucking awkward, trying to find an easy way to get Bella into my bed without freaking her out or offending her. But I'll be damned if my girl didn't just climb right up into the bed, hoodie, shoes, and all. She turned back to me when I didn't follow, and blushed a little. Of course it would be more comfortable for her. She remembers doing it the first time. I took off my jacket and shoes, not wanting to get dirt on my bed, but not wanting to ask her to do anything that made her uneasy. She looked at me apologetically, and began unlacing hers. I set the alarm clock for 5:30. It would only give us 5 hours of sleep, but that was far more than I was used to getting. I let out a deep breath, turned off the lamp, and climbed into bed next to Bella, who was laying on her side facing me. It seemed like this whole thing was pretty fucking dependent on physical contact, so I inched towards her carefully on my back, trying to not upset her, and when I was close enough for her to do it, she lifted her little hand, and started stroking my hair softly. And it felt fucking good. So I relaxed, and turned my body towards her, unsure of what to do next. And almost like she was reading my mind, Bella took the reins, and scooted even closer to me in the bed until her little warm body was pressed completely against mine. My head was completely clouded with her scent, and her warmth as she slowly laid her head against my chest, leaving her hair tickling my chin. Then she started humming that song. It had been so long since I heard it, it almost made me cry like a fucking baby. But instead I just put my arm around my girl, and pressed her closer to me, burying my nose into her hair, and breathing her in. I was asleep within seconds.
Bella's point of view. I smiled against his chest and took in a deep lungful of his unique scent, never ceasing my strokes of his hair, or my humming. I got him to sleep rather quickly. I forced myself to stay